Hey, how's it going? Today we're going to talk about the unfortunate deaths of some people. First, we're going to talk about Clement of Ohio, a representative who died in the name of justice. Accidentally, of course. In 1871 of June, retiring to his law practice after a life of treason, he was attempting to prove a client innocent of murder by arguing that the victim shot himself. Prior to the trial, he headed to open land to determine the level of residue left by the point-blank shot, and then left the field with 3 live rounds in his pistol. Arriving back at his hotel, he was handed a parcel with an unloaded gun used by the victim. He laid that gun beside his own pistol. Leaving his suit, he pocketed the deadlier of the 2 choices of the weaponry. 50-50 chance. Of course, in a heads or tails situation, this was just deadly. Confident in his case, he entertained a hotel visitor with a live demonstration of his argument, shooting himself. It's fair to say that it was very convincing, to say the least. While he wasn't present for the occasion, his client was ultimately cleared of any wrongdoing, and through the novelty had worn off, another man met his death in the same fashion, while trying to demonstrate how he killed himself. Fascinating, to say the least. In 1981, a young gentleman, Qin Shi Huang, jumped over a fence labeled off limits to check on a malfunctioning machine at a Kawasaki heavy industries plant. In doing so, he accidentally hit the on switch, prompting a robotic arm to crush him against the machine for processing automobile gears. His co-workers didn't know how to stop it. Hence, he became the second man in human history to be killed by a robot. Thankfully, the company introduced safety measures after his death to isolate industrial robots within their plants. We all know how Terminator started. By all accounts, the 18th century king Frederick of Sweden was a sweet and gentle man who cared for his servants and made snuff boxes as a hobby. Eventually, such personality wasn't fit for the rapid power grab that characterized the monarchy. Both his wife and his court exploited his deposition for their own gain, thought to rule the land. Frederick reached the ripe age of 60 with an appetite for food, perhaps to stuff down his feelings after a lifetime of being undermined. After eating a sizable helping of lobster, caviar, sauerkraut, kippers, champagne, and then finishing it off with 14 servings of his favorite dessert, he died of severe digestive troubles. Too bad they didn't have Pepto during that time frame. Steiner, a 16th century town mayor, is best known in Bruin for his 1 or 4 meter long, 4.5 long beard. In his life, he was very popular with the townfolk and served multiple terms, but his untimely death serves as the most memorable aspect of his legacy. In 1567, a large fire sent the town into panic. He was usually rolled up his beard in a pouch that he carried with him. Unfortunately, he had his beard hanging during the chaos. And some point, during the ruckus, his foot caught onto his beard and he tumbled down a flight of stairs, ultimately breaking his neck. Today, the town features a full-body illustration of the man, carved in a rock that is displayed on the side of St. Stephen's Church if you want to visit it. His beard is engraved in his town's length as a celebrity in the town's memory. That's quite fun. Isidora Duan, considered the mother of modern dance, had received a beautiful scarf from a friend. It was a crimson red and twice her size. Flaunting it in front of a crowd of French admirers in Nice, she was set for a drive in her convertible in 1927. Little did she know that her scarf was tangled in the rear right tire, and the start of her drive would dislocate her spine, resulting in immediate death. Strangely enough, automobile accidents followed Duncan throughout her life. In 1913, her 2 children were drowned in a runway accident, plunged into a river. Later that year, Duncan was injured in another car accident. Then in 1924, she was knocked unconscious in a car collision. Maybe she should have rode horses instead. By 1919, the families of Commercial Street in Boston were used to the groaning and rumbling of a 15-meter-tall holding tank that has been built in the area 4 years earlier. The tank held molasses for U.S. industrial alcohol, which used the contents to produce alcohol for liquor. The tank often leaked onto the street, owing to structural hazards that rushed the process. On January 15th of 1919, a calm afternoon on Commercial Street was abruptly awfully grating. Before anybody understood what was happening, 8.7 million liters of molasses poured onto the street, resulting in a 15-foot tidal wave traveling at 35 miles an hour. The wave destroyed every person, horse, building, and electrical poles in its path. Engine 31 firehouse was obliterated as the sludge caused the second story to collapse on the first. The train resting on Atlantic Avenue was nearly lifted off its tracks. a resident down the street woke up covered in molasses, only to find 2 of his family members killed in the wave. A 0.8 or 0.5 mile stretch of the street was left in shambles as the flood died down. The death toll of the incident amount was 21 bodies with 150 injured. U.S. Industrial Alcohol was faced with 119 lawsuits in the aftermath. The company shifted the blame to apparent terrorist activities in the area, of course, because terrorists use molasses. Working at Toronto's TD Center, Gary Hoy had a habit of body checking windows to demonstrate their tensile strength in front of the use. Hoy, a partner at Holden Day Wilson, worked on the 24th floor of the building. He was clearly impressed by the skyscraper's workmanship. However, his habit of slamming into windows as a testament to the structure was never approved to anybody known in the building. On July 9th of 1993, he was entertaining a group of students with his old tricks on the 24th floor. While the window in question held through the run of Hoy battering against it, the glass popped out of the frame on the second run, sending Hoy into free fall. He died of his injuries soon after, unfortunately. In 1984, the U.S. Tennis Association was sued for $2.25 million by the family of Richard Wallum, a tennis umpire. The lawsuit followed his death at a junior final. It claimed that association had been negligent in providing safety precautions for umpires. In the previous year, he had met his demise after a ball hit his groin, caused him to topple over in his chair and strike his head to the ground. Unconscious, he was carried from the court and soon died of his injuries. It takes balls to go that way. The terracotta warriors of Yin Yang are arguably the most famous legacy of Qin Shi Huang. As the first emperor of the dynasty and China itself, he united the 7 warring regions of China into one unified state under his rule. The nation's currency, weights, and measures were standardized. He oversaw the development of transportation channels and linked individual fortresses to create the Great Wall of China. However, all the while he was accomplishing these feats, he was obsessed with finding an elixir that would grant him eternal life. The emperor had issued an executive order demanding that his subjects aid his quest to find this immortality. While the regional governments replied to the demand with hesitant news of the failure, Qin did come upon what he believed to be immortality pills in eastern China. The mercury pills took his life instead. Oh, the good times of mercury. I apologize if I butchered his name, by the way. An adult man over the age 30 appeared to have survived the first stages of the volcanic eruption that declaimed Pompeii, only to have been struck by a boulder carried by the cloud that was overhead. It crushed his chest and head. Signs of infection to his lower leg indicated that the man had escaped the eruption with leg injury. Hence, his dramatic getaway would have likely been very painful and felt like an improbable stroke of luck. His remains were found with the top half at a lower elevation than the rest of his skeleton, presumably because the boulder had pushed it deep within the rubble and made the whole thing a commercial or a comical sight. Worst of all, centuries after his death, he was featured in a list of history's most cartoonish deaths. We have since learned that the man's skull was excavated intact and undamaged. It has been crushed by only the boulder, which probably came from door jab. In fact, the poor guy is now believed to have died of asphyxiation from volcanic ash and dust, not the boulder itself. Well, what a horrible way to die. As you can see with this photo, it is quite cartoonish. When I first saw it, I thought it was a stock image, and I thought it was part of a joke. Empedocles, or Empedocles, was a Greek philosopher who probably best remembered for his classical theory of the 4 elements. He was the last Greek philosopher to write his theories down in a verse form. Legend has it that he threw himself into the active volcano, Mount Etna in Sicily, in order to fool his followers into believing that his body had vanished and that he would return as a god. Ultimately, for him, one of his sandals survived the fury of volcanic issues, and it was discovered by his followers, revealing that his leaders wasn't quite a god, to say the least. He did disappear though, so that was a good magic trick. Pyrrhus of Epirus was one of the greatest conquerors of all time. His heavy losses in one campaign has led to the term Syriac victory being considered an honor for him. Pyrrhus was such a great warrior that a Spartan royal asked him to defeat Sparta and put him on the throne. He was defeated, having underestimated the strength of Spartan warriors. We've all seen the movies. So he moved on to the next campaign in Argos. As he entered the city through the narrow streets on the back of an elephant, an old woman, unhappy as she probably was, threw a roof tile at him from which was on her balcony. The tile stunned him, which allowed a common foot soldier to stab him and kill him. So yeah, it's not really too unusual, but unfortunate to say the least. Elzar Maccabeus' death is told in the Old Testament book of I Maccabees. During the Battle of Beth Zuccanah, Elzar thought he saw the enemy king riding an elephant nearby. Thinking he would perform a heroic act by killing the elephant and king, he jumped under the elephant and stabbed it in the stomach with his spear. The elephant did die, but it fell right on top of him, instantly killing him. To add insult to injury, the elephant wasn't even the king's, so that sucks. But he did kill it, so maybe he could stuff it if he was alive. Valerian was a noble Roman who became Emperor Valerian I. During his disastrous reign, the Western Empire fell into total despair. In 260 AD, Valerian was defeated in the Battle of Edessa and taken captive by the Persian king Shapur I. There's a lot of first ones in this one. In order to humiliate the emperor, Shapur used him as a footstool. When he grew tired of his footstool, Shapur had Valerian skinned and had his skin stuffed with poo and straw and put on display in one of his large Parisian temples. That is a different kind of scarecrow, to say the least. Humphrey de Bohun was a member of very powerful Anglo-Norman family in England. He spoke out against the excesses of the king, Edward II. While leading troops at the Battle of Boroughbridge, Humphrey de Bohun, 4th Earl of Hertford, met with a rather unpleasant end. Humphrey led the fight on the bridge, but he and his men were caught in arrow fire. Then one of Humphrey's pikemen, concealed beneath the bridge, thrust upwards between the planks and skewered the Earl of Hertford through the anus, twisting the head of the iron pike into his intestines. His dying screams turned the advance into a panic. Of course it would. Strangely, death via anal insertion was not entirely uncommon during the period of the Middle Ages. Edward II was King of England for 20 years, from 1307 to 1327. He was greatly upset from the nobility of England because he preferred low-born citizens and had many special male friends who received extravagant and expensive gifts. After he got off the throne and was in prison, his wife Isabel, distributed by the close relationship the king had shared with a young man in royal court, brought about his execution in secret. On the night of October the 11th, while lying on his bed, the king was suddenly seized and with great mattress weighed down upon him, suffocating him. A plumber's iron, heated intensely hot, was introduced through a tube into his secret private parts, so that it burned his inner portions beyond intestines. Lovely. Sir Arthur Antoine was a lifelong professional soldier, most noted for the support of King Charles I in English Civil War. He was a great soldier who saw a great deal of action during his lifetime. In September of 1644, he fell from a horse and ended up with a wooden leg, which was later used in his murder. In 1649, Oliver forces attacked his town in the siege in order that everyone would be executed. Aston offered to surrender, but the soldiers who captured him believed that he was hiding gold in his leg. They ripped it off and beat him to break open the leg. Ultimately, Aston was killed by his leg. That was made of solid wood. Julian Offrey de la Mettrie was a French doctor, philosopher, and potentially the founder of cognitive science. He believed that sensual pleasures, such as eating and sex and play, were the sole reason for life, and so he decided to live that life by that principle. He was an atheist and believed that life on Earth was just a farce to be lived and ended with self-gratification. Ironically, he died rather painfully after eating too much truffle at a feast held in honor by a man he cured from an illness. What a way to go. Eighth was one of Japan's most highly regarded, a type of dance drama actor, so much so that he declared a national treasure. On the 16th of January, the national treasure decided to dine out on fugu liver, highly toxic, claimed that he was immune to it. The chef who served him said he simply could not refuse to serve the deadly livers to such an estimated gentleman. Needless to say, he died within 7 hours. So lovely. Hope it was worth it. Curious if he did like it at first, but who knows? Hopefully they had Pepto. Probably not, because he died. Anyway, that was a very short one. Have a great one. Bye, and thanks for watching.